I'm Chief Toussaint Summers of the New Bern Police Department, and I want to say welcome. I'm going to ask our Mayor, Mayor Outlaw, to come and officially welcome everyone at this time.
Well, good morning to everybody, and especially good morning to Senator Tillis and Congressman Jones. We're so glad you're here in New Bern, and the many times we know you've been here, we know you're very familiar with our city. We welcome you, and we'd love to, at any time and any way we can be of any assistance to you today or any time in the future, let it be known that we are here for you here at City Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, good morning to Senator Tillis and Congressman Jones, all other dignitaries assembled. This certainly is a mixed occasion for me. It's a happy occasion in that we get to see Officer Wester again, and he's going to be honored for something that hopefully many law enforcement officers won't have to face. On Friday, March the 28th, New Bern Police Officer Thalmann was on patrol near the Craven Terrace public housing complex and stopped the subject who was riding a bicycle. Detecting the odor of marijuana on the person, Thalmann requested backup. One of the backup officers at that time was Officer Wester. During the investigation of the narcotics violation, the subject began to get aggressive verbally, and when they were looking into the violation, he fled. Officers gave chase. During the course of the foot pursuit, the fleeing subject produced a weapon, and at less than approximately 10 feet from Officer Thalmann, he fired a single shot, striking Officer Thalmann in the face. Officer Thalmann succumbed to his injuries on March 31st, 2014. Despite being fired upon and being struck once in the upper thigh, Officer Wester continued pursuit of the subject, engaging and fatally wounding the suspect. After ensuring that the suspect was no longer a threat to our officers or the citizens of our community, Officer Wester was transported for treatment. I want to make sure I said that right. Despite being fired upon and being struck once in the thigh, Officer Wester continued pursuit of the suspect. Subsequently, it was learned that the suspect was convicted of multiple felonies and in possession of both cocaine and marijuana in addition to a firearm, which was used in the violent death of Officer Thalmann and the wounding of Officer Wester. The suspect had vowed to friends and family that he would not go back to prison and was willing to do whatever it would take. We're here today to recognize Officer Wester for its bravery. We're very thankful to Congressman Jones and Senator Tillis for being here today on this occasion. I've said numerous times that policing is a very, very difficult job, performed by people who are not perfect, meaning we have to make split decisions, and sometimes our decisions are wrong. In this case, Officer Wester put himself for the community. I tried to research bravery real quick before I came over here, and all I could find was it said that bravery means courage. Bravery means courage. And I said, okay, well, what does courage mean? And I found a quote that I thought was pretty interesting, and it made me think. It said, courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at its testing point. The form of every virtue at its testing point. Officer Wester's bravery was tested that day. Thank you, Officer Wester.
I listened very carefully to the Chief's explanation of why we're here today, the event of the day where Officer Wester did his duty. He had a fellow officer, Alex Thalmann, who had been wounded. And I wondered, while I was listening to the Chief, how many times in America does a situation like this, where Officer Wester was called upon to help his fellow officer who was down, who had been shot. It happens more times than we ever can imagine. To all of you who wear the uniform in law enforcement, you all are very special. The many times that I, and I'm assume as well, Senator Tillis and Bern, we meet with those who represent associations. It could be Narcotics Officers Association. So many associations from around America, but primarily from Eastern North Carolina, who come to meet with us to talk about the need for grant money, that we can do a better job of protecting the community where we are serving as law enforcement officers. Today, again, I am grateful to all of you who wear the uniform, to Officer Wester, who at that time was called upon to come to the aid of his fellow officer. He represents all of you here today. He represents all the law enforcement officers who, if called upon, would do the same without a second thought. You don't have time for a second thought. So I'm honored and humbled and pleased to be in the presence of Officer Wester and all of you in uniform. And in my closing, I thank you for all that you do for your community. The world is different than it's ever been. Senator Tillis and I see Capitol Police walking around with shotguns. There are things that are being done here with law enforcement that never would have happened 10 or 12 years ago. The world has changed. That's why it is so important that we're here today to honor Officer Wester and all of you in uniform for what you do for the town of New Bern, now the city of Raleigh. What you are in the front lines of protecting our community. You're the soldiers in America, and you're very special. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm John Bruce. I'm the acting United States Attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina, and I'm here today representing our office and the U.S. Department of Justice. Thank you, Chief Summers and Congressman Jones, and good morning to Senator Tillis and other distinguished guests, and of course, Officer Wester and his fiancée. On a rainy night in March in 2014, Officer Justin Wester answered a call for backup from his fellow officer, Alexander Thalmann. As is usually the case, when police are called to a scene, the responding police officer never knows what danger the call may bring. In this case, it was a foot chase of a suddenly fleeing suspect, and then the horror of seeing his fellow officer gunned down by that suspect. After seeing that Officer Thalmann was being attended to, Officer Wester bravely continued to pursue the suspect, now known to be armed and extremely dangerous. Then, seriously wounded by another shot from the suspect's 9mm automatic, Officer Wester managed to use his own service pistol to subdue the suspect. Officer Wester may tell us that he was just doing his job, and in a way that's true. The job of a police officer is stressful, demanding, and frightening. Police often encounter people whose conduct is at its worst, yet police are expected always to be at their best, professional, restrained, and effective. The vast majority of police do their jobs well, facing these dangers and difficulties with professionalism, skill, and courage. Yet, even if we're not surprised by Officer Wester's bravery and skill, we pause to consider how remarkable such courage and selflessness is. These are difficult times, as Congressman Jones alluded to, for police officers on the streets and highways of America. Seemingly every day we hear of an assault on or even the murder of a law enforcement officer. Some wrongly blame all police officers for the improper behavior of a very few. The U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's offices around the country are helping police departments address the challenges of 21st century policing. Just last week, I was in Fayetteville with Attorney General Loretta Lynch, helping to honor the Fayetteville Police Department and their chief, Harold Medlock, for his collaborative reform efforts, which have greatly improved policing in the city of Fayetteville. I would also like to take a moment to commend the State Bureau of Investigation, the SBI, for its thorough investigation of the tragic night's events that brought us here today, and to commend District Attorney Scott Thomas, who is here, for the comprehensive report he produced, which helped to assure the public in a transparent way that the police conduct here was entirely proper. So as we all work to improve policing, we recognize the strong foundation provided by officers like Justin Wester, who daily exhibit dedicated service and extraordinary courage. Now I'd like to get Officer Wester to come forward to receive this plaque. Let me read this. It says, the United States Attorney General awards the state and local law enforcement Congressional Badge of Bravery to Justin Wester for extraordinary bravery above and beyond the call of duty. October 30th, 2015, signed by Loretta E. Lynch, United States Attorney General.
Well, good morning, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Congressman Jones. It's always good to see you. This is a circumstance where we're celebrating Justin, but we're also mourning the loss of Officer Thalmann. I want to actually start, though, by talking a little bit about police officers. Excuse me. I know every day in this country, millions of people pray for your safety and thank God you're out there to protect us. I personally have, excuse me, I personally want to thank you for all the work you do, and you're a sight for sore eyes every time. The two things I love about this job is seeing men and women that are fighting for our country and men and women that are keeping our community safe. It's an absolute battery recharge every time I get to do it. And this morning, I had breakfast with some officers from Raleigh. Ostensibly, they're here to honor Justin, but I understand it may be to prevent New Bern from convincing them to come back. So it's kind of protective custody. I also had the wonderful opportunity to meet his fiancée. They're getting married in August. And I was told the story, I guess, when Justin was recovering from his injuries, how she may have been guilty of breaking and entering to make sure that he had food in his house as he was recovering. That would be a noble crime if that's the case. But I want to thank you all and just tell you we owe you a debt of gratitude. You know, we owe a debt of gratitude to everybody who will get up in the morning and do what you do. Put yourself in harm's way for somebody you don't even know. We also have an eternal debt of gratitude to Officer Thom and others who have given their lives. And finally, we owe a debt of gratitude to the mothers and fathers, the spouses, and the sons and daughters who support these police officers. They know it's a dangerous job, and you do an awesome job supporting them so that they can protect our communities. And I will tell you this, I know you have our backs, I know you have the community's backs, and as long as I'm a U.S. Senator, I'll have your back in Washington. Now, we've heard the event, we heard the chief and others talk about the events of March 28th, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about really that moment, because I think most people in America do not realize what's happening in that moment. That moment when you get a call and you're coming to the aid of another police officer, you know it's a potentially hostile situation. You see a friend and a fellow officer shot, and you have seconds to respond. And responding in the way that Officer Wester did really does encapsulate the idea of bravery and courage, testing all your values at that very important moment. There's no doubt in my mind that other officers' lives would have been put at risk had he not acted decisively in the way he did. There's no doubt in my mind that this man who has a criminal record, had done harm to the community before, would have harmed others. But for this brave officer's swift action, we could have been talking about mourning the deaths of other officers or other people in the community. And for that reason, I am proudly standing here to provide Justin the Badge of Bravery, the Congressional Badge of Bravery. Justin, thank you for your service, thank you for your continued service, and thank you for your family's service to the communities before you. God bless you.
I didn't trust myself to try to get up here and speak without writing something down. So bear with me as I try to get through this. All I know to say is thank you. That's all I got. I've received so many words of support and encouragement since that night. It's more than overwhelming. And I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have been there for Alex. Oh, man. I'm very thankful for family, friends, co-workers, citizens in the community, and officers nationwide who have, they've come to visit, they've called, they've sent emails. The amount of support in the law enforcement community is staggering, to say the least. It's truly a family, and I'm honored to be a part of that family, and I'm honored to be able to stand here to represent them today. There's so many more officers, some in this room, but hundreds nationwide who will never get the recognition that they deserve for the acts of bravery and selfless sacrifice that they commit every day. And so I just want to say thank you to them as well. Senator Tillis, Congressman Jones, Attorney Bruce, thank you for your kind words. Chief Summers, thank you as well. Thank you all for being here today, and I truly am honored to be standing here. And I just hope I continue to live up to this.
Officer Wesker, I wanted to say you were there for Alex, and not only were you there for Alex, you were there for other officers on the New Bern Police Department as well as the community, and we, again, thank you. I want to say also that Officer Wester embodies the virtues that all New Bern police officers have when it comes to our values of being, having integrity, motivation, professionalism, accountability, commitment, and trust. And we thank you for exhibiting that today. Before I close, I would like to recognize, again, we have Attorney Bruce and Senator Tillis and Congressman Jones, but recognize Mr. Thomas. Just wave your hand for those who don't know you. Members of our board, again, the mayor, wave your hand. Ms. Schreiber, Mr. Kinsey, Mr. Odom, and Mr. Blackiston, and our city manager. Where did he go? Oh, city manager, and assistant city manager, other department heads, and more importantly, the New Bern Police family who's here today, who are here showing their support to Officer Wester. Officer Wester, you may be in Raleigh, but you're still one of us. And, and to the Raleigh police representatives that are here today, take care of our guy. We as you can see, we still love him. City manager, would you like to have a few comments before I close?
Usually whenever I speak at our ceremonies when we're hiring new officers in, I usually speak on the word of service. You know, all of our jobs here as government employees is service to our citizens, service to our community. Today embodies the sacrifice of one of our officers that he laid out and the service that Officer Wester provided to our community. I remember that night very clearly. I was asleep. I think Chief had called me about 8 times because I had my phone on silent, and woke up that night to banging on the door of the fire chief who was supporting the chief and trying to get in touch with me, and Sonia Hayes, our Director of Human Resources, was in the car with him. So it really embodies the spirit of family as an organization, because multiple department heads responded, multiple of our police department responded. I remember getting out on the scene and how many of our officers were actually out there that night, and the commitment of our community to make sure that the information was correct. Attorney, our district attorney, thank you very much for the work that you put in. I know it was a tireless effort in our State Bureau of Investigation as well. And thank you all for coming here and showing our support in Washington for our family and the service that we provide our community, as you do in Washington, D.C. for us as well. So ultimately, like I said, we as government employees, our #1 goal, everybody's job description should have one word specifically located in every single one of our lists, and that is service. Service to our community, service to our citizens. So thank you all for showing up for this very important day. I know it means a lot to Officer Wester. We hated to lose him, but we're happy to see him continuing the work that he does through his police work in Raleigh, because it's important that individuals with the bravery and courage as Officer Wester has, and as well as all the officers that provide service to this community, do day in and day out. So thank you very much.
Again, from Officer Wester and the members of the New Bern Police Department, we want to say thank you for your presence here today. And I can't overstate, policing is a very difficult job, but it makes our job that much easier when we know that our community cares. Thank you.